Good day. So we're going to look at the last part of functions, which is the inverse function. Now normally in a question all these three types come together, so that's why you'll see in the past paper questions more or less you have one of each type. So the inverse function, and it's written as f with L minus 1, that's what the inverse means, and you'll see this again later on when we do in trigonometry, sine inverse, cos inverse. So this is what the inverse function will look like. So once you see that minus 1 there, they want the inverse function with respect to f, and that's really just the inverse of f at x. So you have to use f at x. So this is the procedure, a little written procedure to find the inverse. Now some people could do all these steps in their head, and I'll show you how to do it after, but with the harder ones, it's a little harder to do in your head. But this is really what takes place here. So the first thing we're going to do is let the function name, instead of calling it f at x or g at x, we're going to replace that with y. And I just color coding it for now, so you'll see the difference and where that y moving around. The whole idea, the inverse, is to switch around the positions of x and y. That's really what the inverse means. You're going to switch something. You're going to turn it around. So we switch in x and y. So wherever I see x, I'm going to put y. Wherever I see y, I'm going to put x. And the last step, which is the hardest step, is algebra. I want to change the subject of the formula and make y the subject of the formula. Alright? So we're going to look at the same two functions we was using all the time. Just like before, you could only find the inverse once. So once I find the inverse, I could just stick numbers into it because it's a brand new function that I'm going to get. And you'll see that here. So the first step is I'm going to let f at x. So we're looking at f at x equal 3x plus 4. I'm going to just write it back so you'll see the steps as we go through. So that's the function I want to find the inverse of. I want to find the inverse of f at x, which we call f inverse x. I'm borrowing my daughter color pencil there. Couldn't find my writing. So instead of calling it f at x, I'm going to call it y. So instead of calling it f at x, I'm going to call the function y now. So we have y is equal to 3x plus 4. So I just replacing the f at x as y. Both of them mean the same thing. We would see that earlier when we now start the topic. So we have y is equal to 3x plus 4. So I finished the first step already. This step finished. I rename f at x as y. Right? I'm no longer calling the function f at x. So instead of having x and f at x, now I have x and y, which is more often what we have. The next step is switch the positions of x and y. So in other words, wherever I see y, I'm going to put x, and wherever I see x, now I'm going to put y. So now I have x is equal to 3y plus 4. So I switch the positions of x and y. Wherever I see y, I put x. And again, that's why I color coded it so you can see it a little better. So guess what? Step 2 finished. Now we're on to the last step, which is to make y the subject of the formula. To make y the subject of the formula means everything have to ship across and y have to stay here by itself. When you're shipping across stuff though, send it to the next side, it have an order to do it in. These together right now, I can't separate them together. So he's extra, so I'm going to get rid of his first. And when we're carrying across something, plus or minus, the sign is changed. So when I carry across plus 4, it's going to go across as minus 4. Just like when we're solving some of the basic algebra equations. So far we have carry it across. So we almost have y by itself. I don't want 3y, I want 1y. So right now, the relationship between the 3 and the y is multiplication. So to get rid of anything in maths, and we'll see this before when we was doing algebra. So again, all of this kind of refreshing your algebra skills there. You just do the reverse process. So the reverse addition or subtraction. So that's how it looked like I carried it across and the sign changed when what I really did was minus 4 on both sides. 4 minus 4 is 0. So that's why it looked like it disappeared. X minus 4 on this side. Whatever you do to one, you do to the next. Same idea here. I want to get rid of multiply by 3. The reverse of multiplying by 3 would be divide by 3. And whatever you do to one side, to be fair, you do it to the next. So these two 3's going to cancel out, leaving y by itself. And that's what I wanted. The minute y is by itself, we could switch back now to f inverse x. So this is my answer here for f inverse x. I have a brand new function. And that's it, the question finished. Sometimes they could ask you for f inverse a number. So just to show you, let me say they had asked you for f inverse 7. If I didn't have f inverse x already, I need to find f inverse x first. And now that I have f inverse x, this is the function for f inverse x. They're telling me in f inverse x, replace x with 7. So in place of 7, wherever I see x, I'm going to put 7 minus 4 over 3. And then I work it out. 7 minus 4. In fractions, you work out the top first and then the bottom. 3 divided by 3. So the overall answer is going to be 1. But that's only if they ask you for a number, which they would do sometimes. It will always be x. And that's how we find the inverse. Now some people, like I said, could do it in their head, and it's a little harder to do it in your head. I'm just going to show you how it will look to do it quickly for a simpler one in your head. So to get the inverse, I'm just going to start with the inverse. And in my head, I'm just going to carry across everything. So I start in here. I start off with f inverse x. When I carry across plus 4, it's going to be x minus 4. And to get rid of the 3x that I had, I divide by 3. So you're doing it in the head. You start with f inverse x. You start with your x. Carry across the plus 4. It will turn to minus 4. To get rid of 3, I divide by 3. That way is not for everybody. It's the same thing we're going to get. The procedure will work all the time though. So what I want you to do now is, I'm going to work out this one, but just like before, to give you a chance to do it, pause the video here and you try it. And when you finish trying it using the procedure, and again, look the procedure there, you can rewind the video, write down the question and try it yourself. When you finish try it using the procedure, then you could continue the video and see what it's going to look like. But it's good to have you try it for yourself first instead of me just showing you. Right, so pause the video, try it and come back. And when you're on pause, you'll see the answer that I'm going to work out now. Right, so just like before, same steps. G at x is 2x minus 5. And my first step is, I'm not going to call it whatever the function name is. Even though I have f at x here, that's just the name of the function. I'm going to replace that function name with y. So whatever is we have, I prefer x and y instead of x and g at x or f at x. And again, you don't have to color code it. I just color coding it to explain. Alright. So first step finish. Y is equal to 2x minus 5. The next step is where I switch the positions of x and y. So now I was going to have x is equal to 2, and in place of x, because I switch in, wherever I see y I put x, wherever I see x I put y, minus 5. And now this is the hard part where I make y the subject of the formula. So just like before, everything needs to move across, and just like the last one, these two together, and I don't want to separate them yet. T extra. So I'm going to take the minus 5 and carry it across. So in other words, the reverse of minus in 5 is adding 5 on both sides. Minus 5 plus 5 is 0. So I end up with x plus 5 here. Or you can see I carry it across and I get x plus 5 is equal to 2y. Whichever you more comfortable with. Now I want y by itself. But right now y multiplying by 2. So the reverse of multiplying by 2 would be to divide by 2. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the next. And the whole reason I divide by 2, so this will cancel off. That's the whole reason we do in the opposite. When you do the opposite, it will either turn to 0 or turn to 1 if it's addition or multiplication. So these two cancel out, leave me with y by itself. So whatever left, that's going to be the inverse. And that's it. I get my inverse, g inverse x. And just like before, sometimes they can ask you with a number. So I'm going to stick in a number in here. So let me say g inverse, how much? 3. So if they wanted g inverse 3, now that I have g inverse x, I'm just going to replace x with 3 in this function. So 3 plus 5 over 2. 3 plus 5 is 8 over 2, 4. And that's how you do the inverse.